Good morning, everybody. We're here at the weekly virtual plant clinic. Dr. Bill had some prior obligations this week, so just Bernie and I. And I know Bernie and I tend to get a little off the rails. Maybe if we get some questions, we'll answer them. But we got some stuff we'd like to talk about today. And the first thing I think that we really wanted to get into was invasive plants, invasive plant species. Last week was Native or Invasive Species Awareness Week across the country, and we had a busier week last week, so we didn't really touch on it, but we're going to touch on it. We're going to touch on it this week.
Colby, I don't think the plants care what week it is. They're pretty much invasive most of the time. So
yeah, they're going to be.
We'll talk about them a little later, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, there's no. The plants do not care what week it is. They have no concept of date or time. All they know is grow, grow, grow. And that's why they're invasive. So before we get into first of all, I want to say if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll get off of our soapbox to answer if you have anything. But I do want to start with what are kind of some of the things that makes a plant invasive? Like what are some of the common things that we see in multiple invasive plant species?
Well, the biggest thing is it outgrows the native vegetation and displaces it. Mm-hmm. So any plant that tends to grow faster than the native plants is going to be invasive. In fact, any plant, even if it's a native plant, it can still be invasive. They call it pioneering, but the truth is it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, my first call this morning was somebody with Kogan grass. Great example. There's a plant that just keeps crossing across this whole state. Miserable plant. It's kind of like the plant from hell.
It's a really bad one.
There's no chemical that's going to go in and take it out in one shot. What you have to do is hammer on it enough times that it finally gives up. And most people are not really up to a 2-year action to get rid of a plant. But if you don't, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Fellow this morning had 13 acres, and he's got 2 patches that are 100-foot square. Well, if he doesn't clear those, he'll have 2 patches that are 200-foot square, and then pretty soon he's going to have 13 acres of Kogan grass. So,
yeah. So before I was the Florida Friendly Landscaping Coordinator here in Hernando County, I worked still in Hernando County over at the Southwest Florida Water Management District. I was on the vegetation management team there, and one of our biggest issues that when we were treating invasive plants, the biggest thing, like especially area wise, was Kogan grass. And if you're unfamiliar, if you live in Central Florida, you've seen it, and you may not know. A lot of people I talk to about it, I hesitate to call it my favorite invasive because I don't like it, but it's the one that I think is like a huge problem. It's the one I know the most about. It's all over. You'll see it everywhere. Just yesterday, I drove back to Sumter County for an event at the fair, and we went by the St. Catherine mine, and a lot of places where they have these big berms, there's just Kogan grass from the ground all the way up. It grows up a hill. It's fire adaptive, so you can burn it down, and it's just like, thanks for clearing out everything else. I'm just going to grow some more. It can spread via the fragmentation of the rhizomes of the roots. If you till it up and break it, all you're doing is spreading it. It also spreads by seed, and it's really, really difficult to kill and keep it dead. Like Bernie said, that there's not one herbicide that takes care of it. It's a lot of the chemical treatments for it involve a mixture of multiple, because you need some that are soil active, and then you still have to go back and keep going with maintenance treatments.
That's kind of one of the problems with invasive plants is they tend to spread very fast. Uh, Yep, and they do take over the natives, but they take over everything. And
Hmm.
they even hate each other, so it becomes kind of a tug of war. If you've got uh, potato vine, uh, air potato, and you've got uh, one of the invasive trees, China berry or something that you shouldn't have, it doesn't care. They'll
Yeah, they're not
let
teaming
them
up.
fight it out, you know. So. Uh,
So,
and
uh,
it's the same thing with the Brazilian pepper was a little berry, beautiful plant, but you cannot stop it. If you have one beauty or one plant, you have 100, and if you have 100, you have an entire patch. Every area gets filled with it. So uh, and it's sad because the other characteristic that most native plants have that helps them be invasive is that they're resistant to things. So
yeah,
you can't kill
with
them, and they're there growing like mad.
yeah, and Brazilian pepper trees are super. The thing about them is they can exist in like a bunch of different morphs. So, for instance, this tree that we're looking at right here, it can grow like that with a big woody stem and look like an actual tree. But it also grows like this one, where it looks like a big old bush of just tangled up vines. And the thing is it does that in order because it's very adaptable, and that's something we see a lot in in invasive plants is that they're very adaptable to the environment, and they don't have any natural predators. So Brazilian pepper tree will change to grow exactly how it needs to be the healthiest, biggest, strongest Brazilian pepper tree you've ever seen. We have Brazilian pepper in Hernando County. They're not so much. You don't see them on the roadside as much here as you do down south. But if you've ever been to Venice or Sarasota, that area, if you drive through, you'll see. You could build a house inside of some of these just mounds of Brazilian pepper that I've seen down there. And going back to what you mentioned about that they're not teaming up. They don't care. They hate each other too, just like they hate everything else. Those of you guys in North Florida, I'm sure you're familiar with kudzu, right? So kudzu, it's a vine. It's super invasive. It's big old leaves. So down south they have Old World and Japanese climbing fern, which have tiny little leaves, but they're incredibly invasive. And in the next few years, we're going to see those two plants. They're going to meet head to head, and it looks like Hernando County might be the battleground for it because that's just it's because I think there's kudzu a little bit north of us. Maybe I bet it's in Marion County. And then I've seen old world climbing fern in Hernando County. Not as much as you do, but if you go down south, it's everywhere. And then those two are going to go, and it's going to be like a unstoppable force versus the immovable object with that stuff. I don't even know how that's going to go. But we do have a question here. Is the leaf of life plant invasive? I'm not familiar with the leaf of life.
Hmm. We
Can
need
definitely.
Teresa to do some quick research for us. I'm not sure what the leaf of life is. Um, I had a customer bring in a plant one time and called it the plant of life, and that was the wrong name. But she gave me a piece of it, and I was able to propagate it. It's a beautiful plant. It's not invasive because here anyway, because if there's any frost, it gets zapped.
Mhm.
But the big problem with so many of these invasives is they're very pretty plants when they're alone. So Brazilian pepper is a pretty plant if you have one, but if it takes over the entire lot next door, and then it takes over the entire waterfront, takes over everything between the road and the forest, and then it takes over the forest. Those things are a serious problem, and yet every one of them was a very pretty tree. I had a customer where the hedge, he had been taking care of this hedge, lived there for 20 years, and little by little, the Brazilian pepper had taken over the hedge. And he was keeping it trimmed, and it really looked nice, but it was to the place where his hedge was 20% viburnum and 80% Brazilian pepper. And of course, the birds are eating the little red berries, which he thought were wonderful. Look, I've got little red berries now on my hedge. I didn't have those when I moved here. Well, those plants were providing enough seed that his neighborhood was covered with Brazilian pepper. His neighbors are having a terrible time. And I don't know if he's the person that started it, but somebody with a really pretty plant wiped out a lot of money in plants that should have been there, and a lot of money in taking care of things that shouldn't have to have been done, just because it looked pretty. So, you know, and the stores will sell you an invasive plant. You can go to a big box store, and I will guarantee that something that they're selling is invasive. And if it's not listed on the top list, they can legally do that. There's two lists of plants: one that you can't sell, and one that you really need to watch, because if you put it in the wrong place, it goes berserk. And it turns out Hernando County is about the worst place for everything. So.
So the way that I think this is kind of a miss, people misunderstand this a little bit. An invasive plant, it does not have to be federally or on the state level listed to be an invasive plant. Invasive is it's people decide if it's invasive, if it meets XYZ criteria, which are typically outcompeting native plants. It grows well in the environment. So if it meets those criteria, it's invasive whether it's on these lists or not. So, for instance, Brazilian pepper tree is listed on the big federal list, and which means it is illegal to transport. Like, you can't do it unless you are a licensed remover of it, and to do that you have to dispose of it correctly. There's a whole list of things that you have to do to be licensed to do that. But then there's there's the UF recommended list, which is a pretty comprehensive list, but still does not have everything that could possibly be invasive. And another thing you have to think about is some plants will be invasive, will only be invasive in certain situations, because like Bernie said, natives can be invasive. One thing that I read actually in my Master Gardener training that I liked a lot was a native plant in a non-native area can act as a non-native plant. So even natives can be invasive. It's all about the specific area and the specific situation. And I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure that if you, you look at things like we have a native duckweed that's here in Florida, and if that duckweed gets too out of control, if there's too much nitrogen in the water, what have you, that duckweed will take over, and it's invasive, even though it's a native plant. So,
there are a lot of plants that, if it's an invasive tropical, once you get maybe Jacksonville or Gainesville, someplace north on, that plant is no longer invasive because it's killed back and it becomes nothing more than just a normal annual and isn't a problem. But that you can't sell it in good conscience in Miami, even if it's legal. But they do. If somebody comes from the north and they see a plant and it's pretty, and they like it, they're going to buy it. And unfortunately, if you're a merchant, you have to sell what the people want to buy. So you can tell them they shouldn't buy it, and if you won't sell it to them, they go somewhere else and they still buy the thing. So I really don't fault the merchants as much as maybe it is their fault, but they're trying to survive.
Hmm.
And the people that don't get an education on what they're buying uh, are a problem in that they perpetuate this thing. So, if nobody planted invasives, uh, we could eventually get them under control.
Yeah, the so Teresa has here that leaf alive plant is invasive. I found the same thing. It was listed in a. It's got a few different names, but it's listed on the FISC list for whatever year. I think they started listing it 2019, which is FISC is the Florida Invasive Species Council, which comes up with a list of. It's one of the lists, but that's not the legally binding one, where it's like, hey, you can't transport it. So in theory, you could go buy that and in a store if they sold it, and they wouldn't stop you. There was no one's going to stop you, but it's kind of up to you to do your research on different plant species, especially tropical ones. The way that a lot of invasive species work is they end up being at similar latitudes, right? So, for instance, old world climbing fern is native to like Southeast Asia, and if you look, it lines up pretty close to Florida. There's a range of 15 or so latitude degrees that it falls in, and that just goes right over Florida. So and the reason is because the temperatures are similar across. There's a lot of similar environments, not always, but the temperatures themselves are very similar. So you end up with plants, if you transport them across a latitude, just move in a straight line, they'll probably grow wherever you end up.
That's really an interesting thing because
So interesting.
Florida is at 28 degrees. We're at 28 degrees north latitude. And if you go around the world at 28 degrees north latitude, it's pretty much desert. If you go west, you go through the desert southwest, South Texas, northern Mexico, that kind of an area. If you go east, first thing you come to is the Sahara Desert, then the Arabian Peninsula, then the little bit of Africa, or not
I'm
Africa,
actually gonna.
India, and then you go through China. There you go.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yep. So Florida, being right here, if you guys can see my mouse. Yep. You go through the Sahara. You go through.
Yeah. See how all that's desert.
Yep. But
But
old world
we're
climbing
not.
fern is native to right
That
here.
area right there is where all those plants can come to the U.S. and grow and be happy. And if you notice, we're kind of the only spot uh, in America that lines up.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's desert. If you go west, you're not going to plant these things in Texas and have the same kind of problems that you have
No.
planting them here.
And there's a whole lot of different yeah, I mean they've made plenty of documentaries about why the Sahara is a desert and sub-Sahara is jungle, but there's all kinds of things, ecological features, geological features. There's all sorts of stuff that makes it different. But if you look at that's like Korea and China and I mean, all this stuff over here is going to. They have very similar minimum temperatures to Florida, and a lot of them have very similar humidity and all this stuff. Even though over there it's a lot of they got jungle and things like that, but the temperatures end up being the same, which means the plants can survive. So the latitude correlation in invasive species is something that I find super interesting. I did a whole research project on it in college. I thought it was super interesting.
Yeah, that's basically Southeast Asia is the only place that we line up with that has plants. So that's what you're going to get. And boy, do they grow well here. They take over quick.
Yep. Florida is somewhere. I wish I remember the exact statistic, but it was a very. It's like one of the hotbeds for invasive plants in the whole world because we tend to have a little bit milder climate than they have over in Southeast Asia. So the plants that normally are like they have to be hardy to survive do really well here because they don't have to be so hardy. Because they're like, oh, it's nice over here, I don't have to work so hard to just live. And like you said, this is the only place in the United States. We're the only real subtropical area in the continental United States. Puerto Rico actually has a lot of invasive plant problems too, but less so than Florida.
I'd like to point out a lot of this information is something that's being taught to master gardeners. And if you have an interest in being a master gardener, if you'd like to learn some things and pass it on, it might really be a good program. The purpose of master gardeners is not to plant things and do planting. It's to act as the go-between with the universities in growing information and the consumer. So if you want to help people and you want to learn things, it is a great program. The cost is minimal. The initial education is pretty decent. We have I think it's 8 or 10 weeks of classes, and we're doing a lot of the classes online, so you don't end up spending all day here every day for 8 weeks. You go home and you do things online, and then when we get done, there is a test, and I don't think anybody ever fails the test, but it really makes you think.
Yeah,
And the neat part about it is you learn from people that are professors or active in that particular thing. So it covers citrus, which is a real problem in Florida. We cover palms. That's a class by itself. Grass is a class by itself. The various chemicals. They teach you fertilizer. They teach herbicides.
you get a real good basis in
So
plant
you
science.
really get good coverage, and obviously, uh, you know, in a short period of time, even though you're given the knowledge, nobody expects you to remember all of it. But one, you have the backing of the university to help you, and two, most people become a specialist at something. So, uh, if you really like insects, be an insect specialist. There's enough need for somebody that really can identify the insects and tell people uh, what to do to prevent these particular types and to support a different types because they're going to be good to have. That those kind of things. Uh, that's a specialty into itself. Um, Lawns are a specialty. Uh, Vegetable gardening, if you enjoy vegetable gardening and you want to
It's
learn about vegetables
yeah,
and be able to tell people what to plant and when to plant, that's an area where I'm not very good because one, I'm old actually, and second, it's hard to get up and down. I can't get digging a hole and planting things. So about the time I started in this, I was physically really not able to do vegetable gardening. So that I kind of skipped. But uh, I became a specialist in citrus. That has obviously kind of faded. I've done lawns now uh, for the past 10 years. I've been a lawn specialist. Uh, and it's amazing what you can learn, and you've got tremendous support behind you. The university, I can call up, ask them anything I need to know, and get immediate answers. We have continuous training, so uh, we get you're required to take at least 10 hours a year in uh, recurrency training, and it doesn't take very long, and you really become familiar with something. So, if you have any interest at all, it's really a good program. Um, it's also it's kind of like being the teller in a bank. You're only a master gardener while you're working for the extension. It does not extend to your private life, so you can't go open a garden center and advertise you're a master gardener. You're only a master gardener while you're doing things for the extension. If you have a neighborhood organization and you want to give a speech to the neighborhood organization on horticultural things, then by all means do it as a master gardener. If you want to go out and advertise that you're a master gardener cutting lawns, that's prohibited. So,
Yeah.
but
The
it's really something that we could use people, and you learn a lot. And once you're in the program, the things that are available to you are tremendous. So if you like the idea, contact your local extension office and see when they've got a program coming up and if they can use you. I'm
yeah,
done.
I think that the so I went through the Master Gardener training. I did mine all online. Over it's been a couple months, but I think that what it does, the best thing it does is give you it's almost like a toolkit of like exactly what to know to then further what you're interested in. So if yeah, there is a class about palms, but let's say you're super interested, or the palms is only 1 week, but if you're super interested in palms, when you wrap up, hey, go do some palms. Go figure out everything you need to know about palms, and it's a good group of folks over there at the extension office. So if that's something you're interested in, here in the county, over by Spring Hill Drive, you can just drop in or give them a call. I think that they also have a sign up online. Teresa linked in the comments here the IFAS link to the Master Gardener program, which might be something that any one of you are interested in. So
It's kind of an
once
interesting thing. Dr. Bill, is actually Doctor of Plant Pathology, and I, I really, if I was a younger person, I think that would have been something really good to do. It is amazing all the things that he has had to cover. Uh, it was insects, nematodes, uh, fungus, bacteria, viruses, all those things, and they were discussing things as like the most obscure virus infection in Southeast Asia. And, so the man has got a background that is tremendous, and his specialty was insects. So um, he has an insect collection that is very extensive. So uh, anytime I have an insect, I can just almost by the time you walk in the room, oh well, that's a such and such, and uh, they're a good insect. You need those. So, uh,
you know,
but
Teresa,
it's amazing what is available from the university, and we sure
yeah,
appreciate it.
there's a whole lot of resources there. I like the Plant ID folks. I'll be racking my brain about a Plant ID, and I send it to Bill, and Bill sends it off, and in 10 minutes I have an answer. It kind of makes me feel, I'm like, man, I need to get better at that. But Teresa put in the comments here, if you are interested in becoming a master gardener or interested in the program at all, just want to ask some questions, email Dr. Lester's email is on the screen right now. It's one thing that I've always really enjoyed, that I liked about going to college. My degree's in biology, but I'm specialized in ecology and conservation. And to a certain point, I got to pick a lot of the stuff that I did and a lot of the stuff I learned about. So, I took a class that was specifically on conservation biology. I took a class specifically on invasive species biology, and that's pretty much what I focused on was ended up being invasive species and like big picture ecology. And you really like if that's something you're interested in there, you can really dive deep down in and get the most intricate, specific information possible. I thought someone was coming in my side door there, and it's just really interesting. So I don't know. I like learning.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing. When you realize that there's 500,000 plants, give or take a few. Um, Nobody can know them all,
no,
but we have a lot of plants show up in Florida that are brought in that are kind of unique. And when you go to the store, and they've got this very unique plant, and all it says on the tag is foliage. To identify that plant is a real problem, and the university people amaze me. They come back and identify everything. We've never had them not identify a plant. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
you
and
can't just take a single leaf and say I want an identification of this, because all you're going to get is, uh, if it's a very unique plant, and that leaf is very unique, you'll get the exact identification. But otherwise, they're going to get you a family pretty quick. And if you know it's an olive tree, and there's 200 varieties of olive trees, maybe we can go down to the actual named variety. Maybe we can't, but we can get you really close.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, and that's one of the things about, like you mentioned, like no one can learn every plant. Well, that's why there are plant experts here in Florida that know a lot, and plant experts in Washington State that know a lot, and these people. It's a big the scientific community. One of the great things about it is that it's like everyone is contributing to this massive human knowledge base, and you can even see that on a smaller scale, like you're talking about at the extension, because there's different specialists that are good at different stuff and know different stuff, and like you said, you can't learn everything. So having that teamwork of different expertise is super helpful, and you see it everywhere in any even outside of science, like any government office, it's a team effort.
well, the master gardeners, it may not know everything, but they know how to find out, and
Hmm.
that
Or they
that
know somebody who knows.
yeah, as long as the backing is there, you can be brilliant when you can say, "I'll get back to you." But
Hmm. Yeah, research is a skill. Knowing how to research is a skill. Knowing how to read, really dense, to be honest, really boring scientific papers is a skill. And that's something that really I think you only learn with practice. But like I was saying, that Master Gardener program really will give you the tools to develop those skills. So, like I said, if anyone's interested, you can email Dr. Lester about it. That's what we were directed to say. And I'll put his email up on the screen again. And I want to remind everybody that if you have any questions, either right now or if you're watching recorded, put them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them, even if it's being recorded. I think Dr. Bill goes in and reads those comments and tries to give a good answer. Trying to think about something else that's been on the dome these past few days. I've been interested in butterfly gardening lately. It's like developing I really like butterflies, and Florida, is a hot spot for butterflies. There's I think out of the 160 species we have here, a quarter of them are like only found here in Florida, that's crazy.
that's amazing. Yeah, I would think that that in itself would be a specialty. I went out with Audubon Society on butterfly hunts,
Yeah.
and what really surprised me is uh, we started out. We went out to the Chinsigat Nature Center, and they said, "Well, we'll go along the road, and then we'll go along the fence." So we walk out to the road, and if you're going to do butterflies, you really need close focus binoculars.
Hmm.
So, and I didn't. I had a pair that would I could see my feet and focus on my shoes. So that was good enough. And we start out, and we go about a foot, and the guy says, "Oh, here's some," and I didn't even see them. And looking through the binoculars, and and ended up we only went 200 feet in an hour and a half, and got like 30 some butterflies, 35 different butterflies in this
Wow.
little area. And a large number of them were small enough that standing up looking down you didn't even see them. So It's amazing what we have. A little yellow thing would flutter through, and oh, there's a particular, and then one would come by, and it would look almost the same, except they had white on it. That made it something else. And
Yeah, I like how there's different. It's pretty common in butterflies. You'll have there's mimics, right? So I think I'm trying to remember exactly. I think monarchs taste really bad to predators,
mm-hmm.
but then there's a mimic of a monarch that looks very similar. I can't remember what it's called. I'll find it real quick. But that mimic of the monarch as developed. Viceroy, yes. So the Viceroy looks really similar, but it tastes good to the to the predators, but it made itself look like a monarch, so it wouldn't get eaten. Snakes do that too. There's a whole lot of mimicry. It's super. That's something else that's super interesting is mimicry in animals.
Well, snakes are one of those things that I have eaten rattlesnake, and that's probably the best thing to do with them. They
Yeah,
they're kind of the trailer park child uh, of the animal world.
yeah.
Nobody really cares for them, and they're probably just as nice as they could be, but it's just the fact that their circumstances of life, uh, nobody wants anything to do with them.
Yeah. We'll touch on snakes here again in a minute. We got a couple questions. Um, Into hummingbird plants, as we're about to have hummer soon, can I trim my flaming bush? Crazy climber with red flowers. Kindly help. Love listening to you both. However, missing out on our Dr. Lester. Kindly advise. Yes, we miss Dr. Lester too.
Well, I would say trim it now, but if we get a frost, you may get some tip damage. So, but go ahead. If it needs to be trimmed, uh, probably April 15th would be the ideal day to do it. But other than that, I don't think it's a problem.
Do you think we're gonna get another frost
Hey,
or
that's
a
one of those
frost?
things that you absolutely do not predict.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
You don't want to say it.
we
I
have
get you.
not had one, uh, a real killer for almost 2 years, and uh, historically we don't go more than 2 years without
Hmm.
getting one. So uh, it's very possible that we will. All we need is
Yeah,
one of those things moving in real fast from Canada, and we could have a problem.
yeah. That's true. It's been warmer lately, and I've been tired of being cold. I'm from here, man. It gets under like 50 degrees. I'm like, all right, we need to get back to normal. I do not like being cold. Another question we have here: what is the best fig variety that will do well in Central Florida?
Brown turkey and Celeste do very well in Central Florida unless you have high nematode loading in the soil. They will not tolerate nematodes. So
Hmm.
uh,
And how would you find out if you have high nematode load in your
you
soil?
plant it, and if it grows the first year and then doesn't grow after that and declines, you probably have a high nematode load. Figs
Hmm.
do very well. If you put it in a pot, they grow. If you have low nematode soil, uh, they do beautiful here. They make a nice big bush, and uh, they produce a lot of figs, and the figs are really good. It's a great plant. But where I live is an old um, uh, citrus grove, and the nematode load is really, really high. So uh, if you live in an area that wasn't farmed and hasn't had a lot of agriculture, you probably won't have any problem at all. If you live in an area that has been uh, an old citrus area, you're probably going to have high loading. In between those two areas, you're just going to have to find out. And and fig is one of the great indicators because the plants are not all that expensive, and if it does well, You've got great soil, low nematodes. If it doesn't do well, then it tells you not to waste your money on a lot of plants that are nematode sensitive.
Well, there's your answer. Lily mentioned, has a bone to pick with you, Bernie. Said that she's listening from a trailer park right now. So that's up to you. That's up to you. That's up to you to deal with.
No, she's not in a trailer park. She's in an RV park. Total difference, and she knows it.
Yeah, I think we're
The
not going to
RV
get into the
park,
socioeconomics
RV
of
parks are
trailer
what
parks
they
right
have
now,
in
but
Florida where people move in and out. Trailer parks are those things where 25-year-old trailers are all lined up in a row, and they rent for very low rent. It's the last place you can go and live in the chain of events. So she's definitely in an RV park and not a trailer park.
I'm glad you made the distinction. Um, Teresa put a lot of really good information about butterfly gardening. I've actually been really on these articles the last few days. I found 3 or 4. She's got 3 or 4 posted here. I really enjoy the uh, community butterfly scaping. That's a good one. Another question we have here: making holes at the bottom of a cardboard box and try composting. Always fail, but I'm trying. Too many leaves, twigs. And sending Bernie lots of love.
Well, it's one of those things that uh, the carbon nitrogen ratio needs to be just right. So if you one don't have a pile that's big enough that it can produce heat and act as an insulator, uh, if you're doing it in a cardboard box, you need a fairly good sized cardboard box. Uh, don't put uh, all twigs in to begin with. Use some paper, use some uh, foodstuffs, use some green things, and a little fertilizer helps to get the composting going. There are several publications on composting uh, from the university,
Oh,
and
yeah.
your county landfill, I believe, has free compost boxes if you're a county resident.
I don't know that that program is if you're in Hernando County, I don't know if that program's running here quite yet. I think they're still figuring out because they have those massive hot compost piles uh, at the moment. I mean it's been a few months since I've seen them.
Well,
I'll have
what
to
about the
check and I can update
compost
us next week.
boxes? The the black things that you're supposed to use as
Oh, well,
compost.
see, those are so our compost bins. If you're in Hernando County, um, those are available for free to Hernando County residents. Uh, if you attend the workshop, we do a workshop every single month. Dr. Bill gives the compost bin portion. Our recycling coordinator, Leanna, is there. She helps with that. And then after that, I give a rain barrel workshop. And if you're a Hernando County resident, you're eligible to purchase a rain barrel for $66. It's I think the value there is pretty good. I'm not in the rain barrel business. I'm not in the making money off selling them. You get them at cost. They are really nice. I think they're 55 gallons. Um, they're big. They're nice. The fittings are good. And you can sign up for that. I'm looking for the banner. You can sign up for that at my link tree. Um, like I said, the compost bin is free. You can attend one, either one or both, and you can sign up for all of them at that link. They will, and then you fill out a form, a sign up form, and then I get your information, and that's that. So in Hernando County, I really, really, really recommend if you are interested in any type of composting, go to that workshop because not only do you get a nice compost bin, you also get Dr. Bill telling you exactly how to use it, answering any of your questions. We've had pretty good turnout at the last few, and people seem very enthusiastic. And there's a lot of compost bins. We have plenty to give away. So Uh, our upcoming one for this month is on the 22nd, March 22nd. It's going to be at the extension office actually, at 11 a.m. I think, and it's on a Friday. So Friday the 22nd at 11 a.m. At the extension office, if you are so interested. So you can go to that link that's below my face right now and check it out.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. The idea of composting is that the microbes are eating all the products that you put in there. And if you put in nothing but twigs, uh, they'll eventually eat it, but it takes years and years. If you
Mm-hmm.
put in nothing but green stuff, uh, it doesn't provide the temperature stability that the microbes need. So, uh, and once the colony of microbes is up, they pretty well digest everything that's there and at a reasonable rate. So it wants to hit a particular temperature, and so it needs to be set up tight enough that it can maintain the temperature, and it needs the correct carbon nitrogen ratio, which I'm not all that great on what it is. Uh, they do teach that, by the way, in the class.
Mm-hmm.
You can put a little nitrogen or a little fertilizer in uh, to help get things started. One of the things that makes compost so wonderful then in your garden is that it already has a microbe colony going. So when you put it in the soil, uh, it goes right to work on the organic material in the soil, and it makes a lot of things available to your existing plants. So uh, compost is probably the finest organic material that you can feed your plant. You know that they provide the uh, nutrients because they uh, release the nutrients from the soil and really help out the plant. So I'm a believer in that compost is an essential for every garden. If you really want great plants on a continuing basis, you can't get too much compost.
Yeah. And I'll put the link tree in the comments right here, so maybe you can get to it a little bit easier. So that will be on all the associated channels. And it'll be the very top link there that you see when you click on that.
Let's go back to butterflies.
Butterflies. It was snakes. I think we had moved on to snakes.
Oh, okay.
Leave the snakes alone. That's the main thing. I know we've talked about this a few times in the past. And Bernie, I ask you this every time: where do people get bit by snakes?
Right in the hand or the face.
Yep, and that you know why? It's because they're messing with them. They're getting their hands. They're like, "Oh, come here! I need to touch the snake." Don't. More than likely, that thing is not bothering you. It is just going a bad state. It's probably just passing through wherever you are. And don't get me wrong. You don't want to put if you see a venomous snake and you have small children or small animals. You don't want to put any of your loved ones at risk. But at the same time, you can also just remove yourself from the situation. Go inside. It'll be gone in a little while. We have there's a lot of snakes that are threatened here in Florida. I think a lot of people just kill them for no reason. There's plenty of snakes that aren't venomous that won't bite you. A black racer, for example, if you walk up on a black racer, it's going to do what its name implies. It's going to race away. But if you corner that black racer and try to pick it up, it's going to go crazy
They go
and probably
berserk.
yeah, then it'll probably bite you 5 or 6 times before you even realize what happened. So yeah, leave your snakes alone. Don't corner a black racer. I mean, I grew up in the country, if you will, and I've caught a black racer before. And saying that, I've been bit by a black racer before. So don't just don't mess with them. It simplifies a lot of it. They are members of an ecological community, the same way that you are, and they're probably not out to get you.
My very favorite snake's the little ringneck.
Oh,
That
those are so cool.
They are so neat, and I don't think you could entice one to bite you if you tried really hard.
No.
They're just a great natured little snake, uh, and it's a shame because uh, people bring both pieces of the snake in to have it
Oh, so
identified when they
sad.
come in, and you just sometimes you really want to cry when you see what's happened. There's some really great snake out there that are doing nothing but good things for you, and you really want them on the property. They are never going to attack you, and they're going to protect you from other things. So, like everything else, it's got a purpose, and sometimes the purpose may not be known to you, but just attacking it because it's there is not normally the right way to go.
Yes, that is the truth. I'll put up a picture right here with a ringneck snake. That's this guy. They're pretty small. That's actually kind of a bigger one in terms of the
That's a
ones I've
very
seen.
big one, yeah.
And they tend to they look so small that like if they open up their mouth, they probably couldn't bite you on the tip of the finger. They look like little worms almost. And they, as their name implies, have a ring around their neck. My favorite snake, native snake, I really like coach whips. I think coach whips are really cool. They're you actually don't see uh, a whole lot of coach whips. Um, I'm trying to
Well, that
find.
was when you were out doing your native plant or invasive plant rem- remediation or removal or whatever you called it. You were in snake country a lot, so you got to see a lot more snakes than the average person. You know,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
we have basset hounds, and the state the big basset hound club in the state wanted to have the nationals in Florida, and we couldn't do it because the field trial people were afraid of snakes. Well, I've been to field trials, spent hours out stomping around in the woods here, out in the trial grounds, and never seen a snake. But no, people just have strange ideas. Those Yankees have a lot to learn about Florida. It's a great place. Hopefully, they'll never learn.
Yeah, the so I've had a lot of different experiences with snakes. Work when I worked at the district. The one that sticks out to me. Well, that's where I saw my first coach whip in person, and I'll show you what a coach whip looks like real quick. They're super interesting looking. Um, so this is a coach whip. They Eastern coach whips, the ones we see in Florida, are black on the head, white on the tail. Um, and that's a defense mechanism because if a snake loses its tail, it doesn't always die. It's a much higher chance of survival, but if it loses its head, it will die certainly. So yeah, I think coach whips are really cool. The real experience that sticks out to me. So we're looking for old world climbing fern and Brazilian pepper tree. We are out in a property that Swiftmud calls Lower Hills or Upper Hillsboro, I think was where it was. This place is a swamp. It is a swamp. There's water and sporadic vegetation, and they have these they're almost like floating islands of just grass and roots but they're sitting on top of water. And I have my chest waders on up to here, and I'm walking, and we had waded through waist deep water up to get to this place, and we step up on it, and I'm walking, and I slip into a hole with one of my legs, and I catch myself with the other one, so I'm knee deep in there, and as soon as I try to pull myself up, my other leg breaks through the root I was standing on. I fall down. I'm this deep in a hole it's all water. It's coming over the chest waders. I'm looking around, and I look, and from me to my computer screen, I'm face to face with a water moccasin, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And it took everything in me not to just be like, ah! And I was like, I slowly got up out of that thing. I took 2 steps and then I like dove away. I was so stinking scared. Um, and that's my biggest snake experience. But yeah, I probably saw hundreds of different snakes all the time, and most of the time they didn't mess with us. We do. The only time we ever had anything that we were like, oh, let's. I almost stepped on a rattlesnake one time, and that was where we shooed that one off. But I never messed with them other than that.
My snake story is got up one morning and went out, and the cat's in the kitchen, and it's looking at something. And I go out, and there's a coral snake on the kitchen floor, and the cat is fortunately not antagonizing the snake. And I got a bucket, uh, swept it into the bucket, took it about 2 blocks away, dumped it back into the woods, and I saw a couple more coral snakes around the house that year, and I haven't seen any since.
Yeah, I
They're
haven't
a
seen
very
a
common snake, but you very seldom see them.
yeah, I haven't seen a coral snake in a while. It's been years since I've seen one. Um, I have 2 cats, and we have a front window we have like our sidewalk that goes up, and then in between the sidewalk and the front window, there's some hedges, and it's kind of like a little secluded area, and the cats will get there and watch lizards and stuff all the time. And I remember it was like a Sunday morning. It was like 9 o'clock. I got up and I was walking out there, and I have a big orange cat, and he is just ears are back, airplane ears. He's ready to go. He's acting. These are 2 only indoor cats. They do not go outside, and he is just acting like he is fixing to jump out of the house. And I look, and there's a black racer just diddling around over there. And his name's Bogey. He ran into the window and made a noise. That thing looked and poked its head way, way, way up off the ground and then just ran away. And I was like, see, it's like you do. I was telling that cat, I was like, you don't know what you what you do if you got tangled up with that thing. You need to leave it alone.
I love the format that we have on our program. I kind of miss Bill, but not that much. We get pretty good together.
Hey,
But
we just
if,
gotta.
if if people don't mind our reminiscing, then we're fine. But if they have anything that they really want to know about, all they have to do is ask. We're glad to
Yep.
answer any questions that we're capable of answering. So uh, hopefully
I've
you don't mind us uh, talking about things that may be a little left field here. But
well, I try. I feel like when Bill's on here, we are laser focused. We pretty much don't get off on a whole lot of tangents. But we answered every question that was asked as far as I could tell. So I think we're on top. You got to fill the time with something. We got to talk about something. But it is getting close to about that time. So if you have any last minute questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you've watched all this recorded, this last hour or so recorded, and you still have a question, please leave it in the comment. I'm not sure that between Bernie and I talking about what we talked about today that we answered any of anyone's burning questions just by nature. But if you leave them in the comments, you'll get a reply comment answering it.
I would like to point out since we were talking about butterflies earlier, if you like butterflies and you don't like caterpillars, you have a problem, because caterpillars are baby butterflies. They're going to grow up and become the butterfly. The
Yeah.
plants that caterpillars eat and the plants that the butterflies want are not necessarily the same thing.
Mm-mm.
The butterflies want nectar plants for energy. The caterpillars need to be a specific plant that the butterflies can lay their eggs on and properly feed the little caterpillars.
Mhm.
So if you want a butterfly garden, think about having other plants other than just the flowers for the butterflies.
Yep.
Think about having the plants for the caterpillars, which is half of the battle. Everybody wants the pretty butterflies, and nobody seems to want to do anything for the caterpillars. So today I'm for the caterpillars. Plant those caterpillar plants, not just the butterfly plants.
Yeah, one of the big things that the the IFS articles about butterfly gardening mention is that you have to provide for that butterfly during every stage of its life cycle. So, in theory, I don't know how common it is, but there may be 4 different types of plants that butterfly needs. It needs a somewhere to lay eggs. It needs a plant that the caterpillar can eat. Normally, these are the same thing, because that caterpillar doesn't do anything but eat. But then the caterpillar may go somewhere else to form its chrysalis, to get in the cocoon. Normally, that's the same plant as the first 2, but it can be different. And then you also need a food source for the adult butterfly. So you have to provide, should you want a butterfly garden, you have to provide for all stages of that butterfly's life. And more often than not, the butterflies are not. They're definitely not going to be anywhere in the same numbers if it's just the butterfly plants. You might see a couple, but when you have their everything they need from birth to death in one area, you are definitely going to see plenty of butterflies.
You can plant the host plants out in a garden area, but don't forget to plant the food plants. And if you put those a little distance away and clump them all together, that's fine. But it's a 2-plant situation if you really want butterflies. So that's it.
Yeah, the monarch butterflies really like milkweed. I remember as a kid, my mother was very supportive of me liking monarch butterflies when I was 5 or 6, and we had a bunch of milkweed at the house, because that's the only thing that those monarch caterpillars will eat is milkweed. They only will go there. So do some research, find out the butterflies you're interested in, because they all have different needs, and it's very, very, very well documented what each butterfly species needs. But
Yeah.
that's about the time we have for today. I appreciate everyone sticking around while Bernie and I talk about whatever comes to mind. Once again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. If you have anything that's a little bit more that you might need a little more robust of an answer, you can email me here at copits@hernandocounty.us. That's my email address. Rainbow workshops, anything I'm doing, it's going to be there at my link tree. The extensions, Facebook, it can be found there. And if you have any really hard questions, you know where to send them. Right to Dr. Bill, so he can use his vast knowledge to answer anything you got. But with that, I think that's all we got. So we will see you. I'm going to be here next week, Bernie. I take it you probably will too.
I think I probably will.
And we'll probably have Bill back next week, I imagine. So with that, y'all have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.